Everyone, welcome back. I've had this for a few years just sitting in a shelf. This is from my best estimates from 1996. So this would have been from the new location of Service Merchandise. We had sistering towns, Lewiston, Auburn. They called them LA in Maine. But I'm from the town of Lewiston, and we used to have it at the Promenade Mall. And when they built a new retail complex in Auburn in I think it was the early 90s, Service Merchandise moved across town to that location. This isn't a very exciting flyer, but I do not see many Service Merchandise things online, especially flyers like this. Service Merchandise had everything. If anyone remembers, you could order stuff, and sometimes you get to the registers and stuff would be down in their basement storage or wherever their storage was, and it would roll on rollers. Super big stuff. You'd drive out back and you'd load up your vehicle. You could get, anything at Service Merchandise at the time. It was quite a retail store. A lot of electronics, stuff like that. That's where I got a lot of my early stuff, like my speakers, my first stereo, my first CD player that I got back in 1990. So this is all stuff from the mid 90s. So we got Discman, which obviously CDs were popular by then. And they finally had things like anti-skip technology. So I'm going to flip through a lot of this stuff because it's just basic outdoor gear and stuff. So, but it's interesting to see for anyone, because I didn't do a lot of outdoor stuff, but there might be people like, oh yeah, I got my stuff from there for camping and stuff, Walmart was in our area, which started just tearing apart all these places. They started shutting down over time, over 10 years. But before that, we had lots of good stuff like Kmart's and Ames and things like that before Walmart pretty much just killed all the competition. But you can see like there's games for camping and stuff too that they had there. Skateboards were popular still in the 90s. They're probably still popular now with certain kids. Rollerblading was huge back then. Got some golf gear. It's my first basketball hoop. I still got it. So this is probably close to the time. So I probably spent about $100 on one for a full. I mean, it's essentially this, but it's gray, like more like that color. I mean, it's still perfectly fine. Got some kids' toys for outside, water fun stuff. I mean, this is definitely springtime when people are thinking about, getting outside more. You used to be able to buy these kits. I mean, I don't know where you can still buy kits like this. Maybe Walmart still does this. Maybe they got those displays, but, trampolines, all that stuff. Outdoor kids' toys, for them scooters. And I mean, things are much more advanced now. They got all the cars. I mean, they had them back then, but now, kids don't want to pedal around. They want to ride in it like it's a real car. Anyone ever played Dragonheart? Is this from a movie? I can't remember. Dragonheart sounds like a movie to me. This doesn't have. Oh, this would be. What's this? Water Twister? Yep, Twister with a water feature. So this was just spring stuff, and there's a lot of appliances and things. So it's kind of boring. But I just thought, being a timepiece, and not seeing a lot of scans online or I don't even know if I've seen a flyer scanned for Service Merchandise. If anyone knows of scans of like flyers from the 90s from Kmart or, any of those stores that were around back then, I'd love to see those because there's stuff like I got my TV in the early 90s. It was a Zenith. I'd like to see like which exact model that was. So that'd be interesting. Got patio furniture. Kmart was always big into patio furniture too. So was Service Merchandise. Not horrible price. Things have, I mean, compared to what the dollar was, I guess that's pretty expensive for like, you can get a hammock for probably $60-$70 now when they're on a good deal on Amazon. So I guess, and the dollar's probably worth half of what it was. But maybe things were built with a little more quality back then. Let's just put it that way. Smokers and stuff and, grills. I was very excited to buy my first grill until I had to clean it a lot. And I was like, I am tired of cleaning this grill. I don't grill anymore. It's a whole thing. You've got to be into it. All right, here we're getting into some interesting stuff like O'Sullivan computer desks and stuff like that. I mean, this is just a fraction of what they had. Real cheap computer desk back then. But I mean, look at it, $50 for a kid that needed a computer desk. The hutches and stuff. I mean, anyone remember these media centers back then? Everything was made to look like wood. You could usually fit like a 27 inch TV into one of these, maybe at the most. Camcorders, I mean, were expensive back then. I mean, when you think of what a phone can do now, being a music player, and then I always think like, oh, geez, a new iPhone's pretty expensive. But for the function, for the camera, my daughter just got the latest one. She had to have the latest one. So she got one of the newest iPhones, like the Pro 16 or something like that. And like the camera's incredible on that, and now it has more storage. You can play, you can have your whole music library, it's just, when I think of how expensive things were back then, now it makes sense that you got to pay $1,000 for a phone. TVs, I mean, 27-inch. I would say that's a little expensive because I remember spending, I think it was not even 300. I got a Zenith 27-inch at Kmart in 1991 or 92, and that thing was gorgeous. And I mean, it was cheaper than this, but TVs, depending on the brand name, they would fluctuate. These are well, that's a Sony Trinitron there. Can you see that? And these are RCA, Sony, GE, and RCA. What do we have down the bottom? Smaller ones. I mean, just even that. I mean, see, that's a good price for someone that just wants a cheap TV. 19-inch. Emerson, yeah, they were the cheaper ones. GEs and Gold Stars. Got VCRs. No DVD players yet. Like I said, we're still in the mid-90s. Like I said, this is 96. But you can see, I mean, you got cell phones coming out for people to buy. Pagers were everywhere. I mean, everyone had pagers if they wanted back then. Probably you're getting close to the end of what would be a decent portable stereo system. The ones nowadays, you can't play tapes in them, but you were already starting to see that maybe some wouldn't have a tape deck in it. Like this little one doesn't look, the Sony doesn't have a tape in it anymore. But I mean, you could still get, that looks like a tape, yep, tape player. This is a Sony, it's pretty much a Walkman. Oh, it is a Walkman. It says down there, but they don't say it in this part for some reason. But this JVC player for $230 was probably a decent little system. Was it 3-disc player, multi-disc? Pretty nice. Yeah, and then everyone still had, again, a phone now. It's your everything. I mean, it was $100 just to buy a phone in your house. And this is really cool. Packer Bells. I mean, not that Packer Bells were great, but look at this. This is where I pretty much dated this for the 90s, 96, because it said the 3500 series for the Legend computers for Packer Bell came out, and it said that the Pentium 133, because there's one of these is a Pentium 133. Where did I see that? Oh yeah, right here. That came out in 95, and I highly doubt, it said like June. I highly doubt they would have been advertising this, so this definitely would seem to be 96 to me. Word processors were a thing back then. If you couldn't afford a computer, or you had to have something portable, these word processors were pretty fancy. Typewriters were still around. Fax machines were pretty popular in the 90s. The Canon bubble jet printers, but this looks like this is an HP. I remember having an HP 700 series color. That thing was the best. It was probably one of the most affordable for ink cartridges too. Not that any really were. I'm going to zoom into this. Does everybody remember when you get these huge bundles of crap software with your PC? So then you get into the boring stuff, their watches and things. But I mean, again, watches were pretty advanced for the time. You got the Apple Watch now, and it's probably not worth what it does unless you're into all the extra stuff like the health features. You want to track your sleeping. So it's really useful for that. But other than that, a watch is just a watch unless you want all that extra stuff. Service merchandise was really big on jewelry. They were a place to go to get jewelry. They had everything. It was like a Days Jeweler or whatever you have around you, plus an electronics store. I wish there was more stuff with the stereo systems in there, but again, this was more of a summer one, so it's not going to show a lot of that stuff. So there you go. Pretty basic. Summer sale stuff with a few nifty little things.